morning shine, shine, shine. Las Vegas, shine your light on me.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight with your award-winning host, Dale Davidson. Dale interviews fascinating guests from top-ranked celebrities to people just like you who have an important story to tell. For more than 15 years, Dale has broadcast every week from the fabulous Las Vegas Strip. He finds the people who really make Las Vegas a one-of-a-kind city and lets the world know just what's happening in this remarkable town. You'll discover why 50 million people visit the entertainment capital of the world every year. Stay tuned for another exciting episode of Las Vegas Tonight.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. Each and every episode, we bring you fascinating guests, often from Las Vegas and doing ministry here in the entertainment capital of the world. And that's the case today. A dear friend of the program, a dear friend of mine, Pam Caylor from First Choice Pregnancy Services is here to talk about the pro-life movement. Thanks for coming,
Hey,
Pam.
Dale, God bless you.
Oh, God bless
you.
you.
So much for having us.
We've known each other a long time.
We have.
Yeah.
We go way back.
Yeah, 15 years at least, you know,
Yeah.
so.
I tried to get you to take my job a while back. Remember that?
That's right. That's right. But the Lord had different things in mind for me and wanted you back, you know. So you've been executive director of First Choice for how long now?
Well, this time around, 4 years.
4 years,
So,
yeah.
I retired there for a while, but
I know.
that
You couldn't stay away.
oh man,
Yeah.
that needed me back. So
Tell me a little bit, let's talk about you for a little bit. Tell me about your life and your childhood. Where'd you grow up? I don't think I ever asked you.
I don't think you've ever known that. I grew up in Kansas and Colorado.
Okay.
I was a Kansas girl. I used to have an accent.
Oh, that's nice.
Friends always tease me when I moved to Colorado. They're like, "You sound so funny."
And when did you come to Christ? How'd that happen?
Oh, well, I came to Christ at about the age of 10.
Really?
My oldest brother went to church and got saved, and our whole family ended up coming to Christ through that. And
Oh, that's wonderful.
I didn't really live for the Lord for a lot of years, Dale.
Yeah. Some of us didn't.
I thought I was, and if I would have died,
Yeah.
that's kind of scary. But God has me now, and I'm solidly, boy howdy, I'm solidly just a preacher of righteousness. And love the
Wow.
Lord.
And then how did you get involved in the pro-life movement?
That's a really funny story. So I'd moved here from Colorado, and James Dobson was huge in Colorado. 'Cause,
Oh, sure. And he's based in the Springs, Colorado Springs.
And I was driving one night, actually taking my son to like college and career outreach, and I usually just listen to I'll listen to music or my CDs or whatever, or DVDs now, but I just happened to flip on the radio, and James Dobson had this show on, and he was talking to this RN who had worked in an abortion clinic for a few years. And I was fascinated. I never had even really heard of these pregnancy centers. And so he's interviewing her, and I'm just like, wow, this is so fascinating how she got out of it. And they ended the interview, but it wasn't done yet. And I'm like, oh, well, that's a bummer. I'd like to know how this ends,
Yeah.
How does when she came out of it? So I'm like, oh, that was kind of cool. So at the end of it, he says, there's these centers around the country, and you can help support them with diapers and finances and whatever. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. So the next morning, I'm taking my son to work, and again, I just happened to flip on the radio. It was totally a God thing, and they pick up right where the interview left off, and I went, okay, Lord, you have my attention.
That will get your attention.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they finished the story, and I was like, wow, okay. So at the end was this another appeal, kind of like, I was okay, I'll check this out. So I'm thinking, okay, I'll find out if there's something like that in Vegas. And so then on Sunday, I go to church, and we're doing a baby bottle drive for the Women's Resource Center. And I'm like,
wow.
All right, got the message. So that was my exposure. I called them up. A week and a half later, I was in training, and I worked there as a volunteer for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then this other pregnancy center opened called First Choice. Well, I wanted to be involved with the post-abortion ministry. That was kind of my heart, really from the time God began dealing with me. I just had this passion for women who'd had abortions.
Yes.
And helping them kind of come to terms with that and begin to heal from it with the love of Christ and the truth of Christ. But because I wasn't post-abortive, I couldn't be a part of that ministry there. So when this other center opened, I thought, well, they probably need somebody to head that up, you know. So sure enough, they did, and that's really why I thought I was going to First Choice. And of course, God had all kinds of other plans. But so yeah, so that's how I got my start it was James Dobson, you know.
Yeah.
And then James Dobson's ministry was the one who granted First Choice our first ultrasound machine.
And all over the world, they've given them to pregnancy centers all over the world.
So we got ours. We opened in December of '04. And we went medical in October of '05. And when they placed our machine, when they granted it for us, and then they placed it later in the year, but they granted it like in July or August.
Right.
And I think we were their 200th machine. And because of our center and our location and the crazy high number of clients we were already seeing, and especially the later term clients we were seeing,
right,
because First Choice is located next to a late term abortion clinic.
Yeah, which is God's blessing, that
Totally.
it's on a private street,
Yep.
that they have to drive past your center in
Yes.
order to get to the
To
abortion
get there
clinic.
or leaving.
Yes,
So we
right.
sometimes we get them as they're leaving.
Right.
And so because of that, we saw an extraordinary high amount of abortion-minded clients, way higher than they've ever seen in any other pregnancy center in the nation. And we saw more of the late term because they go to 26 weeks at the end of the street, 24 weeks and 26 weeks if there's complications. Wow. Yeah. And so because of that, they granted us a 3D, 4D machine. Well, I think we were the third machine at the time that was 3D, 4D. So we were just kind of breaking all kinds of records. And,
Yes.
yeah, so it was really.
Now you remain the busiest crisis pregnancy center in the United States,
in the
don't you?
world, really.
In the world,
Yeah,
wow.
Pretty much in the
How
world.
many do you see in a year?
So we typically now see about 3,600 clients for pregnancy tests, and then on top of that, we do another 2,000 ultrasounds.
Wow.
So our client load is around 5,600. And to kind of put that in perspective, we see more clients in a day than most centers see in a whole week.
Right.
And we see more clients in a week than most centers see in a whole month. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
That's astonishing.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's just amazing.
Yes.
We're so spoiled, Dale, because we just see miracle after miracle all day long, you know.
Yeah, and let's talk about abortion-minded women.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I, before we rolled tape, were talking about some of these amazing numbers you've had.
Yeah.
Define an abortion-minded woman, and then how you deal with her in the center.
Yeah, so God has really blessed us, Dale. We are just, one thing that we do really different that I think kind of really sets us apart is we don't talk at her. We ask questions. So I know that God gives life. I know that God doesn't make a mistake, and I know that a baby's never a mistake and that God has a plan for that baby. So I can say that to her, you know, God doesn't make mistakes, he's not confused. She can say, well, that's your opinion. Or, now, here's an interesting statistic, Dale. About 85 to 89% of our clients claim the name of Christ.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So they already claim to be Christians. So we've already kind of got that foundation that we can kind of build upon. And so I can, instead of that, I can say, so who do you think gives life? Do we give life or does God give life? And she can say, we do, or she can say, God does. And I can keep asking questions.
And you don't correct her, you just,
nope, I just keep asking questions.
Yeah.
It's just friendly. But I keep asking questions until she comes to the conclusion on her own, but the conclusion of the truth. Because truth is absolute. We establish that God gives life. Then I can say, well, do you think God makes mistakes? And she might say yes, and she might say no, you know? And if she says yes, I'll say, really? The God who's hung the sun in the sky and told the ocean only comes so far, that God? And she's like, well, no. God doesn't make mistakes. We do. Oh, okay, so God doesn't, no. Okay, so I just keep asking questions. Then I'll say, so if God gives life, he doesn't make mistakes, is your baby a mistake? What does she have to say? No, I would agree with that. If God gives life, he doesn't make mistakes, is the timing off, or must the timing be perfect? If God gives life, let me ask you this. Is God ever without a plan? Never. So I don't use the word unplanned anymore because there's no such baby as an unplanned baby because God's the one who gives life.
God does not make mistakes.
Exactly. He's never
there
without
are no
a plan.
accidents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it goes. So for an abortion-minded woman, if you look at the definition of minded versus vulnerable, minded is internal, vulnerable is external.
Okay.
And this is the industry standard that has been set in place for over 30 years. So we have ministries that we are accountable to. Heartbeat International, Focus on the Family, NIFLA, National Institute of Family Life and Advocates. And those, one is for pregnancy centers, one is for medical and legal, and then Focus on the Family is just a good network to have. Well, they all have standards in place for how to classify our clients.
Oh, okay.
And so we classify the client either as abortion-minded, abortion-vulnerable, or intend to carry. So intend to carry means that she was trying to get pregnant, she's married, she's in a solid relationship with her husband and whatever church she's in, and we don't see very many of those.
Yeah, I'll
really
bet.
don't.
They don't come walking in.
Not very often.
Yeah.
We do see a few.
Yeah.
And she has insurance, and she's, everything kind of in her life is in
And you
place.
welcome them. It's just
absolutely.
not crisis people.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
invite.
It's just they don't
Yeah.
usually need us.
Yeah.
Then from there you have abortion vulnerable. And vulnerable, the abortion vulnerable woman is sitting in front of me saying, I don't want an abortion. I'm not choosing that. I'm not considering that. But we look at her life and maybe she hasn't told her parents. Maybe she hasn't told her boyfriend. Maybe her parents or her boyfriend are wanting her to have an abortion.
They're pressuring her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she is vulnerable. We
Yeah.
consider her vulnerable. And so she will fall in the vulnerable classification. Then we have the minded, and those are girls who are saying, this is what I'm doing. I'm having an abortion. I want an abortion. I haven't ruled it out. Whatever that looks like for her. Then we have another classification at First Choice because of our location. We have this amazing phenomenon that God has set up. And we literally have girls who walk in every single day who think they have arrived at that abortion clinic at the end of the street. And so we have another classification called ABMWI. And right now, Dale, we're running about 23% ABMWI.
What does that stand for?
Abortion-minded walk-in. So that means that she walked into our clinic thinking we were an abortion provider.
Okay.
And out of those
An amazing number stay and change their minds,
out
don't
of
they?
those who come in,
Yeah.
easily 98%.
Oh, wow.
It's just really rare
Wow.
when they don't
Wow.
stay. It's just really rare.
Yeah.
Now, our policy is if she says, I'm here for my abortion or I'm here for my abortion, we tell her.
We're not an abortion clinic.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and
But we'll do a
we follow up
pregnancy
with
test, we'll
questions.
do an
Yeah,
ultrasound.
Have you had an ultrasound? Let's see if you have pregnancy. You might even need an abortion,
You may
And
not
so,
need one, yeah.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and most of them will stay. Now, out of those, we're running right now about an 86% turnaround rate
Right.
overall, which is just phenomenal. We ended the last year at 90. Our whole last year we ran 91%.
Those who walk in change their minds
Yes,
and keep the
choose
baby.
life. Yeah.
That's an
And
amazing
that's what we know
thing.
about. We
Yeah.
find out many years later or months later that we didn't even know.
Yeah.
They come back with their baby and
And
we're
say,
like,
here, I wanted you to
"Wait,
know.
what?" Yeah. So I mean, we follow up
Yeah.
with them as much as we can, but sometimes they change their number or they move or they just don't
Well,
take our
you
calls.
do a
or-
wonderful, wonderful job with these
Well,
women.
We just praise
Yeah.
God. He just.
I remember hearing you on
uses
the
us
phone
mightily.
the first time you took a call when you were in
We were
my
there.
office.
Yeah.
And I listened to you, and you were so patient, and you were so kind, and no pressure.
Yeah.
And you just asked questions, like you said. You asked questions, and you listened, and you turned her around on the phone, and I went,
Amazing.
wow.
We had one last year that was in Florida, a
Mm-hmm.
mommy, and a local pastor called me. It was late on a Wednesday night. She's like, his wife, she's like, Pam, I need your help. I said, okay. So I called the girl in Florida the next day. She
Yeah.
was 6 weeks that day.
Right.
She was married. Her husband was a pastor,
Oh boy.
and he had left her. So she thought she was going to have an abortion. She had two little girls, adorable little girls. And I said, first phone call, what if this is your boy? I don't know. Okay, so we talked to her for a week. I had another one of my Natasha call her. A week later, she made a turnaround and was like, I'm never speaking death over my baby again. And
Right.
Sunday, her husband came home. Monday, they had an ultrasound in Florida. We never even saw them.
Yes.
And now I just got pictures last week, and oh my goodness, that little boy it was a boy, of course.
That's so great.
And then when I went to Africa a year and a half ago, I was in the airport in Ghana, I believe, and I got a call from same pastor's wife.
Right.
And I said, well, you know what? I'm in Africa, but let me call one of my teammates. And that
And she'll
baby was
call.
saved.
Wow.
Yeah. So God's just, it's amazing.
Yeah.
We just refuse to limit God.
Yeah, God just wants you to be available and obedient.
Amen.
That's all,
Yeah.
We need to take a brief break. I want to talk about Africa. I want to talk about your banquet upcoming and the last one, which was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll be back with
Thank
Pam
you.
Caylor right after these brief messages. Hello, everyone. I'm Dale Davidson of the Christian TV program, Las Vegas Tonight. I have a brief message for you that I pray will give you hope. The Bible tells us, do not fear, 365 times. That's a wonderful reminder for us each and every day of the year. Please believe that when bad things happen, God is not to blame. We live in a fallen world, and the evil one we call the devil wants to bring us pain. Understand that the Lord is by our side, walking us through our trials and bringing us peace. I ask you now to pray to God for peace deep in your soul. Please join me in this prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, please give me peace. Help me to shake off worry and truly know that you're the one in charge. I know that through my faith in your Son, Jesus Christ, I will spend eternity with you in your glorious kingdom, heaven. Help me to understand that you'll protect me from harm and give me the strength to love other people as the creatures that you've created. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. And God bless you. Welcome back. We hope so much you watched the first segment and got to know Pam Caylor, who is the executive director of a crisis pregnancy center here in town called First Choice Pregnancy Services. We discovered during the last segment the busiest crisis pregnancy center in the world.
It's amazing.
And you've
It's
saved
really
how
amazing.
many babies since you opened in 2004?
So since we opened, we've had over 32,000 babies.
32,000. God
in
bless
one
you.
center. I had some men in the center the other day that had granted us an ultrasound machine, so they came by to give us a check, and one of them was a board member that just got off of our board last year, and so he said that number, and one of the guys goes, "How many centers do you have?" And Dave was like, "No, that's one center here." And he goes, "You've had that many saved here?" Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's really mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And Las Vegas is really an abortion capital, isn't it? Why is that? Because we're
Well,
Sin City? I mean, is it that simple?
well, I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, there's 8 abortion clinics here in Vegas.
That's
I mean, that's
amazing.
actual clinics, and then there are lots of other doctors who do them that don't necessarily advertise that.
Yeah, yeah.
First choice is what we call in the abortion hot zone. So we're located within 3 to 8 miles of all the abortion clinics.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And you know, if you look at Planned Parenthood, where they place their clinics, they have 80% of their clinics are in low-income minority neighborhoods.
I know.
That's exactly where we're at.
We talked about that yesterday, or a couple of days ago. I did a show with Michael Hatch,
Yeah,
Pastor Michael Hatch, who was a pastor here in town, and he's an African-American gentleman, and he said...
He's right over by me. He's like a mile from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he says the same thing. He said, you never see an abortion clinic in a suburban white neighborhood.
Well, you know, do you remember years ago we had Alveda King for our
Yes,
banquet speaker?
I do remember.
Yeah, and so when
Martin Luther King's niece.
his niece.
Yeah.
So when I picked her up from the airport and she went to take a tour of the city, and she said, take me over to MLK Boulevard. So in Vegas it wasn't the case, but in every major city she'd been in, there was a Planned Parenthood or an abortion provider on MLK Boulevard.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's just such a personal attack on us, you know, because they associate him with that, and that's not, you know, that's not what, certainly not what she stands for.
And another thing Michael talked about is the fact that Planned Parenthood was founded by a woman who believed that black people were, in her words, weeds of society.
That's right.
And just wanted to eliminate them. And you know, it's a Holocaust.
It is.
For black people in general.
Modern day Holocaust.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. How many African Americans moms do you see?
So right now we're running about 20%, which is pretty much what we run.
Yeah.
Hispanics, we run over 60%.
Wow.
And then between
That's
those
because
two,
of the demographics
right
of our
there.
city. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's 80% of our clients right there.
Yeah.
That are a minority.
Minority. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, when it comes to Planned Parenthood, it's working from their point of view, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
They have been more successful than other organizations that were founded to wipe out the black community.
How is it that Planned Parenthood, and let's get political, because I used to think that it was only a heart issue, it really wasn't a political issue, but you know, a lot of heart issues end up being political issues. Why do you think Planned Parenthood gets taxpayer money? What's that about? It makes no sense to me.
It makes no sense. They are classified as a nonprofit, and they show a profit every year of, you know, millions of dollars. I mean, it makes no sense at all. The abortion industry is so protected in this country. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. If a woman dies from abortion complications, it is not recorded as a death from abortion complications.
Really?
It is recorded as anything but. And that's why, and Carol Everett talks about that. And that's why Carol Everett said they would do everything they could to get her off of their premises. She didn't die on our clock. She didn't die on our premises.
Right.
So even if it's clearly abortion complications, it's not recorded as a death from abortion. I don't care where you're at or what country or what county you're in.
Wow. There was just a Supreme Court decision which went 5-4. Unfortunately, our Chief Justice, that we thought was reliably pro-life, voted with the liberal wing. And basically that case laid out the requirement. There was a law that required a doctor to be on staff, a medical doctor, who could save a baby who was born alive. And then that went down to defeat 5-4. How often do you think that happens? A late-term abortion results in a live baby and they let that baby die. I mean, you would have no way of, I guess, knowing.
No, I mean, I remember an interview that came out, I'm trying to remember what year that was, Dale, a few years ago, and it was 3 nurses who had worked in an abortion clinic. And they talked about hearing those babies cry. And so I know that it happens, but what is more common today is they will inject the baby's heart to make sure the baby's dead.
I see.
so that they do not have that complication of an abortion of delivering a live baby.
Right.
Now, there's the other piece to it. You know, I don't know if you know this. Years ago, Dale, it was probably '08, I had a message on my machine at the office, and it was a clinic. It was a research office in Ohio, and they were calling about that shipment of body parts. And I'm like, wow, what?
Because they thought you were.
They thought we were the abortion clinic.
Yeah.
And so, thank God, God had prepared me, because I had no idea that went on before I came into this industry. I really didn't.
Yes.
And I had just, like probably 2 weeks before that, seen the list from Life Dynamics of the actual prices of the body parts of what they pay for these babies that are aborted: the heart and the spleen and the eyes and the brain and and the limbs and.
For
So
research purposes.
Yeah, for research purposes. So it was literally a research lab that called. And I called them back, and they wouldn't call me back. And then about 2 weeks later, their number was changed, you know. And they were at a university. Like, I called the university and reported it. And that's probably what got them to change their number, because I was so horrified. I couldn't believe they would know this was going on and they wouldn't do anything about it, you know. So I knew then for sure that they were doing that at the end of the street, that they were, you know, harvesting baby parts. So if they want to harvest the organs, they have to have a live blood flow. So those babies, they're not going to inject the heart to kill the baby first, because they need the organs to be live when they. It's horrifying, Dale. It's horrifying.
Yes. Yeah.
We'll never know this side of eternity. You know, we don't want to know. Really, I don't want to know, but we'll never know this side of eternity.
You had a great banquet last year.
Oh, we did. God just
Talk
so blessed us.
Talk about your guest speaker.
So we had Abby Johnson.
Yes.
And Abby Johnson ran Planned Parenthood for 8 years. Well, she was the executive director. She'd been there for 8 years. And she just had a moment where God opened her eyes, and she was
An ultrasound aided abortion. She
which
watched
they didn't
it
do
happen.
in their center.
Yeah.
And they had this visiting doctor, and she wasn't even medical, Dale. I mean, for them to have her come in and be a part of that was just, you know, it had to be a God setup.
Oh, yeah.
And so when she saw that baby, now she'd already had a child, and she'd already had 2 abortions. And yet she had bought into this psychology of it's not really a baby. And so she sees this 13-and-a-half-week baby fighting for his or her life, and sees this baby lose the fight. And it just haunted her. And within 2 weeks, she was out of there. So she was our guest speaker.
Great speaker, by the way. Great speaker.
She really was. And she's so down to earth. And I've messaged her several times since then. And she wrote a book a couple of years after she came out called Unplanned. And then they made a movie out of it.
Right.
And of course, we hosted that in 2 different theaters. And it was just a really well done movie. Really well done movie.
It was well done. Yeah.
And so I had. The year before, we'd had Chelsea Cameron, and she was phenomenal.
She was terrific, too.
She was phenomenal. And so I had a director on the East Coast. Kirk Cameron's wife.
Yeah.
Had a director on the East Coast who wanted to know from me how Chelsea was. And so when I called her, she had just had Abby. Well, she had waited for 2 years to get Abby. And I'm like, oh, I'm calling right now. Well, I knew we had a good chance because our banquet's on Friday, and most centers do theirs on Thursdays. So sure enough, she was available. I called my board, and we said, okay, let's do it. So we secured her right then, and that was right before. That was in January, before the movie came out in March, and it was just perfect timing. God just totally set it up for us.
Oh, yeah.
We had over 900 people there, Dale.
That was incredible.
It was amazing.
Let's
Best
talk
banquet
about
we've ever had.
Let's talk about this year, so we don't forget to do that.
Yeah.
The gift of life is what you always call the banquet, right?
Yes.
And we'll put this up on the screen. We'll see that.
And I think this is going to be for our forever theme, never unplanned.
Oh, yeah.
I just love that.
Yeah, I do love that. Yeah.
We came up with it last year because of Unplanned the movie.
Yeah.
And I love it. And so October the 9th is our event this year.
Okay.
Obviously with the COVID and everything going on, you know, it's really hard for us to plan and figure out what we're going to do.
I
went to Westgate yesterday to talk to their marketing. They don't even have their catering department open yet.
Yes,
So I couldn't even talk to their, you know, big guy over there. So I don't know yet what we're going to do. All I can say is stay tuned. We're looking at a combo virtual live event.
Yeah. So I have it on YouTube and Facebook. And,
Yep.
And people will be able to contribute remotely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our website is First Choice Friends with an S, First Choice Friends LV like Las Vegas.org.
Okay.
And they will be able to go there and register and get information, and as much information as we have right now. Our guest speaker this year is another person from the Unplanned movie, Dr. Levatino. And so Dr. Levatino played the abortion doctor in Unplanned.
Oh, okay.
And he is a real-life former abortionist, performed abortions for about 4 years, did, I think, about 2,500 abortions, but of those, a fair number of them were late term. And God began to deal with him, and he came out. And so then he ended up founding a pro-life pregnancy center, which he and his wife ran for 10 years. He just retired this year.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So, but people will know him because he's testified before Congress on many occasions, and there's all kinds of YouTube videos out there where people see him talking about abortion and how it's done and the instruments, and he brings instruments with him to show,
just how barbaric this whole thing is.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
And really, the beginning of his coming out of the industry was he and his wife could not have children.
I didn't know that.
His wife's an RN.
Oh, okay.
And it got to the point where they were pretty contentious because she's like, "You're murdering babies, and we're trying to conceive."
Yeah.
And what could
What's
he
wrong
say to
with this
that?
picture? Yeah.
Right. And so they ended up adopting a baby, and then they got that baby, and then she got pregnant. Like, their babies are 10 months apart,
Wow.
or 9 months apart or something. I don't know,
Wow.
really close. But that first child got hit by a car and died. And when he went back to the office, his first procedure was an abortion. And so he talks about how he was doing that procedure, and he looked over, and for the first time he saw legs. He saw the trunk of the baby. And he said, it was too late, I couldn't stop. But
Yeah.
like,
This
God
is
just
the
opened
last
his
one.
eyes.
Yeah. This is the last one ever.
So then he did just first trimester for a little
Yeah.
while, and then he completely got out of it because he was
Yeah.
like, if it's a baby here, it's a baby here.
Yeah.
And he was delivering babies. He was an OB doctor. That's what he did. He just
Yeah.
did some abortions.
Yeah.
So he's got a fascinating story.
There are doctors who are OBGYNs who refuse to do abortions, although sometimes they have a tough time from their medical society, from other boards, saying you're not providing women's health, to a full extent. What do you say to people who say, it's a woman's body, she should be able to choose abortion if she wants? What do you say to that? That seems to be the strongest argument that the pro-choice people have.
Her choice came before another life was conceived.
Yes.
We've never heard of a baby being born and the doctor going, okay, now which one is the woman and which one is the child? Right? I mean,
Yeah.
we all
They're
know that it's a
separate. They're-
distinct, separate human being.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
the baby needs the mother to survive, but the baby needs the mother to survive for many years,
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need other people to survive.
Yeah.
So the baby is not the woman's body. The baby has his own complete separate identity, complete separate set of DNA, complete set of organs. He doesn't share his mother's heart or his mother's bladder or his mother's blood, veins.
Yeah.
He or she has their own.
Yes.
So it is a separate life, and the choice came before she laid down and conceived that baby.
Yeah.
That's where the choice is.
Yep.
The choice isn't, there's nothing more unnatural than a woman taking the life of her unborn baby.
Yes.
Her preborn baby, her baby that's in her womb.
And she will suffer. That's
will
one
suffer.
thing that post-abortive women suffer, almost without exception. And alcoholism and drug addiction and psychological
Suicide
issues.
risk is over 60% higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they know they have killed their baby.
Yeah. And some
And,
women can never conceive again, or they can never carry a baby to term.
Yeah, because they were injured during the abortion. Yeah. Yeah, that was part of the
The
deal.
ectopic risk is much higher after an abortion, especially if it's a surgical abortion.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're doing a wonderful job trying to do what you're doing,
Thank
boy.
you.
Let's talk about Africa.
Oh, Africa
You went to
was
Africa, you went to
amazing.
Ghana and
Ghana and
Uganda.
Uh-huh.
And what was your mission, and why did you decide you needed to go there?
Wow, well, I had been invited years before, and I just couldn't work it out. And then I got an invitation from two pastors from two different countries. And literally within like within 2 weeks, I was on a plane to Africa. It was the craziest thing I'd ever done in my life.
That's wonderful.
Went all by myself.
Let's take a brief break, and then I want to hear a lot more about that. I let time get away from me. We'll be back with Pam Caylor. We're going to talk about her trip to Africa, which she shared. You were on. I watched breathlessly to see what was going on with you. We'll be back with Pam right after this. Hello, I'm Dale Davidson, the host and producer of the Christian television show Las Vegas Tonight. I'd like to take a moment right now to talk to families. First of all, to the parents, grandparents, and all the others who watch over and care for our precious children. Child development experts say that children won't become fearful during a troublesome time such as this if you remain calm and reassuring. They say that you should answer your child's questions openly and honestly while staying positive and upbeat. And now, to all the kids who are watching, your mom and dad and everyone who cares for you are making sure that you're safe. It's very important to them that you're happy and healthy because they love you very, very much. They're always going to do all they can to make sure that everything turns out all right for you. You know, an important way to feel better when you're scared or you're worried is to talk to God. Ask your mommy or daddy or grandma or grandpa to pray to God with you. Let's all say a prayer together right now. You can say a prayer just like this one whenever you're feeling worried or scared. Ready? Here we go. Dear God, please take care of me and all the people I love. Help me to be strong when I hear or see scary things. I know that the people who love me are doing everything they can to keep me safe. Please give them the strength they need to be brave whenever they need to protect me. Thank you, God, for always loving me. Amen. During these difficult days, I pray that God will bless you and keep you and your loved ones healthy, happy, and hopeful. Stay tuned to this station for wonderfully inspiring programs for the whole family. Goodbye for now. I hope you were as breathlessly waiting as I was to hear all about Africa and find out how Pam was called there. She had a mission to Africa. Tell us about how. First of all, how'd that happen?
Well, it was a God thing. I mean, I just don't know how else to say it. You know,
Yeah.
I got a call the weekend of Thanksgiving, and by December the 12th or 14th, I was on a plane to Africa. I mean, like, wow. So I pretty much funded it myself. The center helped a little tiny bit because we weren't really sure how much ministry I was going to do. Well, it turned out everything I did was
ministry.
yeah. So I got to preach in a couple of mega churches. I preached. So I went the last 2 weeks of December. So I was there
Christmas
the weekend, the weekend of Christmas and the weekend of New Year's. And that last Sunday, the last Sunday in 2018. I preached in 4 churches that morning. So we started at 7:30 in the morning.
Wow.
And I preached in 4, and I just preached on abortion, and they loved it. It was amazing. Wow. It was just amazing. So since I've come back, there have been several babies saved in Ghana through one of the pastors there who just was in all those meetings with me and learned how to talk to the people, and you know, that there's never an exception and it's never okay. And he was already pro-life, but he just got so many tools, you know, kind of from hearing me talk. So it's been amazing. I was supposed to go back last fall, and things kind of didn't work out, but Kay went, my friend Kay Caylor went in my place. She only went to Uganda. She didn't go to Ghana. And then the Ghana pastor was back last year. He was at our banquet. He's planning to come back again this year and be at our banquet. And they're all just begging me to come back. It's just details right now.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So it's
what a great
amazing.
connection.
Amazing.
And it is a worldwide effort, isn't it? You know, I'm encouraged by one thing that seems to be happening, and confirm for me that this is indeed happening, and that is the younger generations are more pro-life than our generation was. Tell me why that is.
Well, I think the reality of science and ultrasound, and you know, ultrasound was around, but it really began to be really used in the pregnancy center movement in the 90s.
Okay.
You know, it's just, there comes a point in time where you can't deny truth, you know, at that level anymore. So I think that's a big part of it. I think that's a big part of it.
And there is a group called Feminists for Life, which is interesting, and they don't see that to be mutually exclusive. You know, that a woman's right to choose and all of that is all tied up with her femininity, which is actually, you know, the exact opposite, isn't it? Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's the most unnatural thing a woman can do,
Yeah.
or a man.
Yeah.
You know.
Let's talk about that. Men are affected, aren't they?
Men are affected.
Yeah. There are many that want to have the child and then don't. Because the mother says no.
So my stance is always, if a man is there with his girlfriend or whoever she is, and he's saying, well, I don't want her to, but I'll support whatever she decides. If you don't want her to, this is your baby, then don't pay to murder your baby. Don't take her to the abortion clinic to have the life of your baby taken.
Yeah.
You don't have to participate in the death of your baby.
Yeah.
And they've really never been given that permission before.
Yes.
You don't have to pay for the death of your baby.
Yes.
You know, we had a couple a few months ago, and the guy was sitting in the waiting room. He was about 10 years older than the girl. It was both of their first baby. And so it was the end of the day, and we were just getting ready to close. They were the last client. So I went out and sat down beside him, and I said, so what'd you find out in there? He says, oh, we saw our baby. I said, really? I said, so what'd you see? Well, we saw our baby. I said, how many weeks? I think the baby was like 9 weeks. I said, really? So you saw your baby jumping and dancing? He says, yeah, our baby was moving. I said, wow. So what are you thinking? Oh, it's up to her. I said, really? Huh. So how many kids do you have? Well, I don't have any kids yet. I said, really? You just had your ultrasound, right? He says, yeah. And I said, and what'd you see? Well, we saw our baby. I said, okay. How many kids do you have? I don't have any kids. Okay, let's do this one more time. You just saw your ultrasound, right? He goes, oh, I have one.
I have one.
I said, exactly. You're a daddy already. I can't change that. I can't undo that.
Yes.
You're a daddy. You're either going to be the daddy of a live baby or a dead baby, but you're a daddy today. He kind of looks at me and he says, well, my dad's been talking to me. I said, really? What's your dad been saying? He says, well, my dad, he had a girlfriend that got pregnant when he was younger, and they had an abortion. I said, really? What's he saying about that? Oh, he regrets it. really, your dad is telling you that he regrets having a baby aborted.
And
So,
here you are.
Yeah, it was pretty fascinating. So I think they ultimately chose life, but you know, it does affect men. The thing about abortion is it is a direct attack on manhood and womanhood. There's nothing more unnatural than to take the life of
It's
your baby.
what God has meant for us to do.
Men are protectors.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so it directly attacks their manhood. And I think statistically, Dale, the prisons really show this out. I think I haven't heard the statistics in a while, but well over 50% of the abortion population are post-abortive, especially for the men. You know, and
it affects them
it does,
just as much.
You know, it does.
Yeah.
In a different way.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
in a different way. The effect for women can be physical and emotional.
Right.
There's really not a physical cost to a man. But you know what? I have a volunteer who ran into her college boyfriend about a year ago. And she went on to have children with her husband, and they had twins. And he said to her, I never had another baby. So his only baby, they had aborted, and she said, Pam, it just shredded me. Like, I had no idea. Like, who would think of a man never having another baby? We know that it's a reality for women, but wow, you know.
Yeah, that's life-changing, isn't it?
There's an amazing song. It's called Blue Eyes Like Janie's. And we use it in the center.
Yeah.
And it's a song, and they have put kind of a scene to it, you know, to play it out. But it's a guy and a girl, and they're young, and they're probably, you know, high school, college age. And they get pregnant, and, you know, she thinks they're going to get married, and he's like, oh, no, I'm not ready for a baby. So they have the abortion, and one of the part of the lyrics says, they told us it wasn't a baby, and when we came out, we heard the doctor say to the nurses it was a girl. And then in the song, they meet up years later, and they're both kind of at this pro-life protest thing, and the whole thing is, you know, would she have had blue eyes like Janie's or brown hair like mine, you know? And so it's just a way to help the girls in our center project beyond this crisis that they're in, and they are going to wonder. One of my staff watched the other day, and she said, "I've wondered that, would my baby had eyes like me or eyes like my husband, or, you know." And so it does affect us, and we can't just hit a delete button and delete a life. It doesn't work like that.
Sure.
You know, it doesn't work like that. God has a plan, and He's got a purpose, and those babies are destined. You know, interesting, Dale, for years and years and years, we've known that over 70% of all abortions, and this comes from the abortion industry, Guttmacher Institute, over 70% of abortions are procured by women who claim the name of Christ. And if you take 60 million babies, take that times 70%, in this country alone, over 47 million babies would have been born to families that claim the name of Christ. What kind of an impact would an additional 47 million people who are walking around claiming Christ have in this nation today?
Could change everything.
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, my son's generation, they're all millennials, is only 2/3 of what it should be.
Right.
A third of their generation is gone because of abortion.
It's time for Christians to stop partnering with the devil, to stop compromising. We don't compromise at First Choice, Dale. Abortion is wrong, and we don't ever partner with it, and we don't ever support it, and we don't ever do anything at all to provide for that option. Is it an option? Yes. This is America. It is an option. We talk about it. We explain about it. We educate against it. We have graphic information. We have graphic videos that show her exactly what's going to happen if she goes and has that abortion. We had a girl just yesterday who said, "Turn the video off. I don't want to do that." You know?
Yeah.
And we didn't force her to. We just said, "You have a right to know this.
Yes.
This is what will happen."
Yeah. And they'll never tell her.
No.
Yeah.
You know, but it's time for Christians to stop being lukewarm about it.
Oh, yeah. And we're lukewarm about
Yeah.
it, or it wouldn't be going on, period.
You know, it's time for pastors
Yeah.
to start talking about it and preaching about it. And yes, you have women and men in your church that have had abortions, but if you'd start talking about it, they wouldn't feel like it's a big secret that they can't talk about.
Yeah, that they're the only ones sitting in there.
When in
Yeah.
reality, probably the woman to her right and the woman to the left has had an abortion.
Right.
Probably half the people on this stage that are singing and preaching have had abortions.
Yeah,
But
I know.
who talks about it?
Yeah.
It's time to start talking about it. Like Kay talked about it. You know how she helped
Oh,
that
yeah.
that woman that said, "Oh, you talk about that."
That's
know?
right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
a
have to
great
talk about
story,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
and we are keeping these women and these men bound by not talking about it.
Yeah,
By declaring, this is what God says. This is, choose you this day
yes.
whom you will serve. Choose this day life or death. Choose
Yeah.
life, therefore, that you and your descendants may live. It's time for us to start talking about it.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Let's answer one question that people who are pro-choice or who are even neutral on the issue often bring up, and that's they'll say, well, you know, you people are pro-life until there's a baby to raise. You know, you're all in favor of somebody else raising a baby, but you don't help. That's really not true, is it?
No, it isn't true.
Yeah, and when it comes to adoption, there are long lines of people waiting to adopt babies.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Last I knew, there was a 5-year wait for people to adopt a Down syndrome baby.
Wow.
Specifically a Down syndrome baby.
Wow.
Because they might have already had a Down syndrome baby and they want a sibling that
Yeah.
is similar, you know. I just actually took our staff to Utah a week ago, and we went and toured an adoption agency up there who
Oh.
supports us.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating. But we don't have to do everything to help.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of agencies to help at every point along this.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
We do what we do, and then we refer to this agency or that agency. We've had many showers at First Choice for moms, you know,
Yeah.
and we'll just gather stuff and have her come by, or we'll go and deliver it to her, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't stop there, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop there, and adoption is always an option.
Sure. And people, you know, and women especially who are contemplating abortion need to be reminded of that, you know, and also to understand it's not all about them, you know.
Right.
They see it as their crisis, and it is their crisis. But it's that baby's crisis too. Mm-hmm. And they need to do something positive for that baby. And giving that baby up to a loving family would be a wonderful, godly act.
One of my sonographers was not able to have children biologically, and they adopted 2 children.
Is that right?
And
Yeah.
they're in their 20s now. And so to hear her share with these moms is just amazing.
Yeah.
At one point, a year ago, remember the adoption agency that was at our banquet?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
At one point, they had 4 of our girls who were abortion walk-ins. They were all late term when they came in. They all chose life, and they all chose adoption through her agency.
Wow.
And they were all delivered within like 6 weeks of each other. That was just phenomenal. I mean, to me, that's the greatest turnaround. She walks in thinking she's arrived in an abortion clinic, chooses life, and chooses adoption. Like, wow. We're not telling anybody they have to raise the baby, you know, even a baby that's conceived in rape.
Sure.
You know, nobody's saying you have to raise that baby. The baby doesn't have to die because of the sins of the father. The Bible tells us that.
Oh, yes.
You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so let's come alongside them. It's what I call misplaced compassion, Dale.
Yes.
It's compassion in the wrong place.
Yeah.
You know, the compassion is for the woman and the baby. And the baby shouldn't have to pay with his or her life because the father was a rapist.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe, but we're out of time. An hour has raced by.
First Choice Pregnancy Services.
Yeah. How can they reach you?
First Choice friendslb.org is our
Right.
website. And 702-294-2273 is our office number.
We'll put that number up.
And
And they can give you some donations and volunteer, right?
volunteer. Yeah,
Yeah.
most of our work is done by volunteers.
Yeah. And you don't get any tax money. It's all
No.
donations.
Well, we did do the PPP plan,
Oh, okay.
which we expect to be a grant.
Oh, okay.
That's the only government money we've ever had and will ever
Oh,
will
okay.
ever have.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
God bless you.
Thank you.
There's
God
going to be
bless
a
you.
long line in heaven waiting
first
to
choice.
thank you
Oh.
and your people. Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
people, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get to take any credit. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just not being called Saul by God anymore. No, I won't kick against the goats anymore, God.
You're doing wonderful work, Pam.
Thank you.
God
We're
bless you.
blessed.
Thanks for coming on the
God
show.
bless you, Dale.
Pam Caylor, and once again, it's First Choice Pregnancy Services. Look them up and help them out whenever you can. And as I try to remember to say each and every show, when it comes to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, please walk with Him. God bless you. Las Vegas tonight. You know, radio has an enduring place in the heart of America. Sometimes it's music that can enliven your spirit or keep you company when you need some. More often for me, it's just been the right spoken word or two that can quiet my mind and soul. Radio brings me a reassuring word in the quiet of night or a welcoming voice early in the morning as I shake off the night's sleep and find my way into God's purpose for my day. And always, I find the best radio station is the one that brings me the best news, the gospel of Jesus Christ. My favorite radio station is KKVV in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's still right where it's been for years at 1060 on the AM dial, hovering over Sin City like a gospel airship, broadcasting the good news of the abounding love that Jesus Christ has for every single one of us. No matter who you are or where you live, you can receive God's Word via the KKVV Gospel Airship. Just go to kkvv.com and click on Listen Live. KKVV is using all the tools that God's provided them, like podcasting and video streaming and video on demand, to produce programs that lift up our fellow believers and save the lost. If you feel a calling to speak to others about Jesus Christ on your very own show, pick up the phone and call the station. They'll be happy to tell you how. Call KKVV today at 702-731-5588 or drop them an email at kkvvradio@hotmail.com. Please join me in becoming part of the KKVV family. You'll be glad you did.
Morning shine, shine, shine. Las Vegas, shine your light on me.
You've been watching Las Vegas Tonight with your host, Dale Davidson. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of our show. We so appreciate your loyalty to our program. To keep Las Vegas Tonight on the air, please go to our website, vegassaints.org, and click the Donate button. To send a check or money order, please make it out to Dale Wynn Davidson Ministries and mail it to 9030 West Sahara Avenue, Suite 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. To suggest a guest to appear on the show or any other suggestions or questions, write to Dale at dalewdavidson@yahoo.com or call him at 702-480-3989.
Shine, Las Vegas, shine.